Hold out for bolder reforms. That's the advice New York's Attorney General is giving Governor Cuomo in an op-ed published today in Newsday. In it, Eric Schneiderman blasted the current campaign funding laws. He also called for an end to a part-time legislature, putting a stop to outside pay. Schneiderman wrote the governor should hold out on budget talks to get the reforms pushed through. This, of course, the latest on a big back and forth between the two. And joining us now, our political analyst, New York Post political columnist, Fred Dicker, who you might want to be a fight analyst to get through this one. These two seem to be going at it, and Schneiderman appears to be the aggressor these days. He obviously sees an opening, and he's leading with his right or something here, Fred.
Liz, you're absolutely right. You know, we've been talking about this for several days. I called it on my radio show today a civil war within the Democratic Party, and you got a lot of Democrats fighting with each other, or more precisely, fighting with Governor Cuomo. And as you correctly note, Schneiderman, more aggressive than we've ever seen the Attorney General, with several proposals for what he calls reforms in Albany, and saying the governor's not bold enough. He should go further and holding up the budget, which a lot of people think is a wrong thing to do with the budget, since these ethics issues really are not budget related. But putting that aside, you had this Schneiderman assault, and then last night, Liz, just after you and I spoke, something remarkable happened, where the Democratic leader of the Senate, and she's the minority leader, but she's the Democratic leader, really took a strong shot at the governor. The governor initially said that the Senate Democrats should voluntarily honor the Freedom of Information law that right now doesn't apply to them. And her response was, we don't need lectures on ethics in government from Governor Cuomo, which is an extraordinary statement coming from the Democratic leader of the Senate, who obviously is resentful that the governor didn't do more than he's done in the past to help the Democrats take control of the Senate. So they're all fighting with each other. Mainly it's aimed at the governor, and it's another indication about the nature of this year's climate at the legislature.
So he's a little beleaguered right now, and I'm sure he's not really welcoming the kind of advice that he's getting from these other Democrats, especially Schneiderman. But what is he likely to do?
Well, I don't think he knows quite what to do yet. It's ironic, but right now at the legislature, Liz, his strongest ally is Dean Skelos, the Republican leader. It's not quite clear what Skelos wants to do, but he doesn't like some of these so-called ethics reforms. And I say so-called because it sounds great that you're for ethics reforms. I mean, who isn't? But in fact, there are arguments over many of these proposals, and they're not necessarily good. For instance, Schneiderman, as part of his so-called reforms, says that assembly members and senators should not be elected for 2 years. They should be elected for 4 years. Well, that makes them a lot less responsive to the public. So that, you know, you could argue maybe is a good thing. It insulates them from the need to run for elections all the time. On the other hand, it detaches them from the public. Bottom line is, we don't know what the governor's going to do. He's not in a happy situation. And whatever he does, there are going to be critics, including Democratic critics, taking shots at him.
All right. Might be more piling on. We'll see where it goes from here, and we'll be talking with you about it. And a reminder, too, Fred's on the radio, live from the state capitol weekday mornings, 10 to 11, Talk 1300 AM.